and the two cars got married and moved into a garage together and lived happily ever after.
Ooh, that was a good book. But one more story, Granddaddy, please.
You want one more bedtime story?
Yeah.
Okay, I think this time I'll read from this big book of Validity bedtime stories. Yes, let me find a good story here. Oh, this one. Yes, the story of synthetic validity.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Once upon a time, there was a wise king, and his wise civil service agent wanted to come up with a selection test for dragon-slaying knights.
Oh, I like stories about dragon slaying knights.
But the problem was, there weren't enough dragon-slaying knights in the kingdom to do a conventional validity study using empirical, predictive or concurrent validity. In fact, there were only 50 dragon-slaying knights in the entire kingdom, the other securing military deferment or having fled to Canada to avoid the draft. Well, these dragon-slaying knights had several job duties. One was, based on a careful job analysis, using the Verjas method, they work with sharp knives and other similar implements like lances and so forth. They work with heat because they're fighting fire-breathing dragons. And they work with people in some instances, rescuing damsels in distress, helping little old ladies across the street when the dragons are bearing down upon them, and so forth. Well, it determined that there were 50 dragon-slaying knights who worked with sharp knives, 45 who worked with heat, and 20 who worked with people. But the human resource manager who was employed by the civil service administrator determined that was an insufficient sample size to develop a predictive test for hiring dragon-slaying knights. After all, you want to hire people who have the skills and will succeed on the job. So the human resource manager looked about the kingdom for people in other occupations who did similar work. And this is what he found. As you can see, in the kingdom, there were several other jobs where people used sharp knives, worked with heat, and worked with people such as customers. For example, there were butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers, some of whom worked in each of these category areas. So, for example, there were 35 butchers who work with sharp knives, 40 bakers who work with sharp knives, and 30 candlestick makers who work with sharp knives. When you add all of those to the 50 dragon-slaying knights, you wind up with 155 people who work with sharp knives. While 155 still seems like a relatively small sample for an empirical research study, it was more than the 50 dragon-slaying knights alone who work with sharp knives. Similarly, with working with people, we had 35 butchers, 30 bakers, and 25 candlestick makers who, when added to the 20 dragon-slaying knights who rescued damsels and so forth, we had 110 people who work with people. So we now have a sufficiently large sample to do a validity study for our predictors, our selection test for working with people, working with heat, and working with sharp knives. Now, this is what's called synthetic or job component validity. And you can see this gives us a sufficiently large sample to conduct our study. Thus, synthetic validity can overcome situations where the sample size for the job in question is too small. And so the human resource manager was able to report satisfactory results to the boss in the personnel administration area of the civil service department of the kingdom, who then reported to the king, who was greatly pleased, and they lived happily ever after. Oh, the little dear. He's gone to sleep. Very good. We will continue the Big Book of Validity bedtime stories again tomorrow night.